Michelin star chefs are secretly serving trash cuts to food critics who rave about them. Meanwhile, you're overpaying for Wagyu that's probably been sitting in a freezer for 6 months. Something's very wrong here. Let's get something straight. You don't need to spend $200 on a steak to eat well. Ground beef sits in every supermarket at around $5 a pound. Wagyu, that'll run you $200 for the same weight. Do the math. That's a 40-to-1 price difference for what ends up in the same place anyway. Here's the thing most people miss. When beef gets ground up, the machine does all the tenderizing work for you. Those tough muscle fibers that make cheap cuts chewy, gone, destroyed, pulverized into submission. You're basically paying Wagyu prices for tenderness you can get from a meat grinder. Now, grab an 80-20 blend. That's 80% lean, 20% fat. This ratio keeps your burger juicy and flavorful without turning into a grease puddle. Wagyu fans brag about moisture retention like they invented it. Meanwhile, ground beef has been doing the same job since your grandpa was flipping patties. And seasoning? This is where ground beef actually wins. Wagyu has this delicate, subtle flavor that disappears the second you add garlic or onion powder. It's like buying a Ferrari to drive 5 miles per hour. Ground beef welcomes bold flavors: salt, pepper, Worcestershire, whatever you want. It takes seasoning like a champ. Americans eat about 50 pounds of ground beef per person every single year. That's not an accident. It's practical. It's affordable. It works for Tuesday tacos and Sunday meatloaf and everything between. But the real magic? Smash burgers. Take a ball of ground beef, press it flat on a screaming hot griddle, and watch the Maillard reaction create that crispy, caramelized crust. Wagyu can't do this. The fat content melts too fast, and you end up with expensive beef soup instead of a burger. I've eaten my share of fancy steaks. Some were great. Most weren't worth the bragging rights, but a properly made smash burger with that lacy, crispy edge? That satisfies something primal. Ground beef handles breakfast hash, spaghetti sauce, stuffed peppers, and Korean beef bowls. Try that versatility with your precious Wagyu. Speaking of underrated cuts, there's a cheap section of the cow that contains the exact same muscle found in ribeye steaks. Chuck cuts, the most overlooked section in the entire meat case. Here's what butchers don't advertise: that beautiful ribeye everyone fights over, the spinali's muscle that makes it so incredible. Chuck has the same muscle, same one, just sitting there in the shoulder, priced like it's nothing special. I grabbed a 3-pound chuck roast last week for $18. Fed my whole family with enough left over for sandwiches the next day. Meanwhile, one Wagyu steak feeds one person. Maybe. But the real magic happens when you braise this thing low and slow. See? Chuck is loaded with collagen. Sounds bad, right? Wrong. When you cook it gently for a few hours, that collagen transforms into gelatin, creates this silky, luxurious texture that melts across your tongue. Even $300 Wagyu cannot replicate this because it lacks the collagen content to pull off that transformation. And get this, the intramuscular fat in chuck bastes the meat from the inside while it cooks. You're basically paying for a cut that cooks itself into tenderness. Set it, forget it. Come back to perfection. Now here's where it gets interesting for the steak lovers. Butchers have been quietly cutting flat iron and Denver steaks from the chuck section for years. These cuts now show up on fancy restaurant menus at $25, $30 a plate. Same shoulder, same animal, just a different marketing strategy. The flat iron is actually the second most tender cut on the entire cow. Second only to the tenderloin. Yet it costs a fraction of the price because it doesn't have the ribeye's famous name recognition. Makes sense why old-school families built entire Sunday dinner traditions around chuck roast, right? Grandma wasn't being cheap. She was being smart. Technique and time beat an expensive price tag every single time. What chuck lacks in Instagram appeal, it delivers in actual eating satisfaction. Real food for real people with real budgets. But if you think chuck is impressive for what it does with time, wait until you see what 12 hours of smoke can accomplish with our next cut. A few months ago, I had no idea what a health ring even was until my fiancé got me one, and I have to say, I'm shocked this isn't a widely known and used product. It tracks my stress levels, and what I found out is that some supplements made my stress score spike, while others actually helped bring it down. I adjusted a few things based on that, and honestly, I feel 10 years younger. My wife mainly uses it to track her menstrual cycles, and she is obsessed with her sleep quality score. I noticed they are currently running a limited 69% discount, but I don't know how long it will last. It's currently only $60, and it's clear this one is the best bang for your buck, with other health rings priced around $350 with less functions. They managed to price it this low because they cut out the middleman like Amazon, Walmart, etc., who drive up the price and take a big margin, ending up with the customer paying 3 to 5 times more. If you are on TV, you can check it out yourself by pausing the video and scanning the QR code with your phone camera or clicking the first link in the description of this video. Brisket is where patience becomes your secret weapon. See, Wagyu wants you to believe expensive equals better. But Texas pitmasters have been proving that theory wrong for decades. They built legendary reputations on cuts that cost $4 a pound. Not imported Japanese beef. Just smoke, time, and knowing what they're doing. Here's what happens during those 12 to 16 hours in the smoker. Collagen, that tough connective tissue that makes cheap cuts chewy, slowly breaks down into gelatin. This creates a natural sauce inside the meat itself. Every bite stays moist, without needing external fat injected or draped on top. Wagyu cooks in minutes. Brisket takes half a day. And that's exactly why brisket wins. Quick cooking can't develop the flavor complexity that slow smoking achieves. You're getting layers of taste, the wood smoke penetrating deep into the meat, the fat rendering gradually, the bark, that peppery caramelized crust on the outside, forming slowly over hours. Speaking of bark, that crusty exterior creates textural contrast you simply cannot get with fatty Wagyu cuts. Wagyu melts, brisket crunches, then melts. 2 sensations instead of 1. Now let's talk value. A whole packer brisket runs about $5 to $8 per pound. Wagyu sits at $150 to $200 per pound. Do that math real quick. You could buy 25 briskets for the price of 1 Wagyu steak. 25. But here's what makes brisket even smarter. A whole packer gives you 2 completely different eating experiences. The point cut is fatty and rich. The flat is leaner and slices beautifully. 2 textures, 2 flavor profiles, 1 purchase. I've ruined plenty of briskets over the years. Woke up at 4 a.m., tended the fire, fell asleep, panicked. But even my worst brisket fed 8 people. My best Wagyu experience fed 1 person and lasted 6 minutes. The learning curve is part of the fun. Every pitmaster remembers their first perfect smoke ring. Makes sense, right? Technique beats price tag every single time. But brisket isn't even the most underrated cut hiding in your butcher's case. That honor goes to something restaurants charge premium prices for. Short ribs are the cut that fine dining restaurants pray you never discover at your grocery store. Here's the thing. These bad boys come loaded with marbling that rivals Wagyu naturally. No special breeding programs, no Japanese mountain water. Just good old-fashioned cow anatomy doing its thing. The fat weaves through the meat in a way that would make any Wagyu steer jealous. And the cooking process? Almost foolproof. Toss them in a Dutch oven with some wine, aromatics, and stock. Walk away for 3 hours. Come back to meat that literally falls apart when you look at it wrong. Try that with Wagyu, and you'll end up with a $200 puddle of rendered fat. I learned this the hard way at a friend's dinner party. Let's just say his wife still brings it up. But here's where short ribs really shine. That bone isn't just for show. During cooking, it releases collagen and minerals that transform your braising liquid into restaurant-quality sauce. No culinary degree required. The meat makes its own gravy while you watch television. Pretty good deal, if you ask me. Now let's talk international flavors. Korean galbi proves this cut travels well. Thin sliced, marinated in soy and pear, grilled hot and fast. Completely different technique, equally delicious result. One cut, endless possibilities. All for under $8 per pound when your store runs a sale. The flavor versatility matters too. Short ribs laugh at bold seasonings. Red wine reduction? Bring it on. Garlic by the fistful? No problem. Fresh rosemary and thyme? Absolutely. Wagyu's delicate taste would wave a white flag against these ingredients. Gets completely buried. And the leftover situation might be the best part. Refrigerate your braised short ribs overnight and something magical happens. The flavors marry and deepen. The fat solidifies on top for easy removal if you're watching your waistline. Day 2 short ribs genuinely taste better than day 1. Name another expensive food that improves with age, besides cheese and wine. Okay, bad example. But there's another cut that takes bold flavors even further, one that Mexican grandmothers have perfected for generations. Here's where things get spicy. Literally. Flank and skirt steak are the cuts that built an entire cuisine. While fancy restaurants were pushing Wagyu as the ultimate beef experience, Mexican grandmothers were turning these cheap cuts into dishes people actually crave. These steaks come from muscles that work hard, the diaphragm, the belly. And that constant movement creates something Wagyu's pampered cows never develop. Real, deep, beefy flavor. I remember the first time I had proper carne asada at a street taco stand. The meat had this intense, almost mineral taste that punched way harder than any expensive steakhouse cut I'd tried. Cost me $3. Changed my whole perspective on what beef should taste like. Now, here's the trick most people miss. These cuts have long muscle fibers running through them. Cook them wrong and slice with the grain. Chewy disaster. But cut against those fibers into thin strips. Suddenly you've got tender bites that melt in your mouth. The loose fiber structure does something else magical too. Marinades don't just sit on top. They actually penetrate deep into the meat. Lime juice, garlic, cumin, chilies. The steak soaks it all up like a sponge. Try doing that with Wagyu. The fat literally blocks absorption. And the cooking time? We're talking 6 to 8 minutes total on screaming hot cast iron or grill grates. You get those gorgeous char marks, that smoky crust, dinner on the table before your neighbor finishes preheating his oven for that Wagyu he bought. At $8 to $12 per pound, you're eating like royalty on a peasant budget. My dad always said the best things in life are simple. He was talking about his fishing hobby, but it applies to steak too. These cuts also stretch further than premium steaks. 1 pound of skirt steak fills 8 tacos. 8! That same money gets you maybe 2 bites of Japanese beef. But what if you want something even leaner? Something that won't break the bank, but still satisfies that steak craving. There's a cut sitting in every grocery store that bodybuilders swear by. Here's the thing about top sirloin. Nobody brags about it at dinner parties. You'll never see a food influencer posting glamour shots of sirloin on Instagram. It's the quiet kid in class who ends up becoming a doctor. And that's exactly why you should pay attention. Top sirloin delivers real beef flavor without drowning you in fat. For folks watching their cholesterol, or anyone over 50 whose doctor keeps giving them the side-eye about red meat, this cut actually makes sense. You get the steak experience without needing a cardiologist on speed dial. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Less fat means less flavor, right? Wrong. Top sirloin has this honest, beefy taste that doesn't hide behind richness. When you bite into Wagyu, you're mostly tasting fat. Pleasant? Sure. But sirloin, that's actual beef flavor. The kind your grandfather talked about. The kind that makes you feel like you ate something substantial instead of expensive butter. And here's what nobody mentions. Some people want their steak to have texture. Actual chew. That satisfying resistance when your teeth sink in. Wagyu practically dissolves. Sirloin fights back just enough to remind you it was once a cow. Sounds weird, but it matters. Price point sits around $7 to $10 per pound. Not the cheapest. Not expensive. Just right in that Goldilocks zone where you can eat steak twice a week without your wallet filing for divorce. But versatility is where sirloin really shines. Throw it on a screaming hot grill. It develops beautiful char without fat dripping everywhere and causing flare-ups that turn your backyard into a fire hazard. Slice it thin for stir-fry. Cube it for kebabs. Make stroganoff. This cut adapts. Wagyu does one thing. Sirloin does 12. Bodybuilders and athletes figured this out years ago. 26 grams of protein per serving with less saturated fat than fattier cuts. It's the practical choice that still delivers satisfaction. Sometimes the best option isn't the fanciest one. Sometimes it's the reliable workhorse that shows up every time. Speaking of unexpected winners, the next cut isn't even beef. And honestly, it might be the most controversial pick on this entire list. Here's the twist nobody saw coming. We're talking budget meats that beat Wagyu, and the winner isn't even beef. It's chicken thighs. Yeah, I said it. Dark meat chicken destroys expensive Japanese beef in almost every practical way. $2 to $3 per pound. That's what chicken thighs cost. You could buy an entire month's worth of thighs for what people spend on a single Wagyu steak. And here's the kicker. They actually taste incredible. The fat content in thighs makes them basically foolproof. Overcook a Wagyu steak by 2 minutes? You just ruined a $150 piece of meat. Overcooked chicken thighs? They're still juicy. They're still delicious. The extra fat protects them like a built-in insurance policy. My grandmother never bought expensive cuts. She made chicken thighs with paprika and onions every Sunday. Fed the whole family for under $10. We thought we were eating like kings. Now consider versatility. Wagyu does one thing. It sits on a plate looking fancy. Chicken thighs? They go jerk. They go teriyaki. They go Mediterranean with lemon and oregano. They go Korean with gochujang. One protein, unlimited cuisines. Try making authentic butter chicken with Wagyu. Actually, don't. That would be insane. The texture argument seals the deal. When you crisp chicken skin properly, you get this incredible contrast. Crunchy outside, juicy inside, Wagyu is just uniformly soft. Sometimes you want something to bite into, you know? And the environmental angle matters more each year. Producing chicken requires roughly 10 times less water than beef. Your wallet feels good. The planet feels slightly less angry. One package of thighs feeds a family of 4 with money left over. That same amount buys approximately 1 bite of authentic Wagyu. 1 bite. Your family would stage an intervention. Professional chefs keep thighs in their home fridges. They know what works. So there you have it. 7 budget cuts that outperform the world's most expensive beef. Ground beef, chuck, brisket, short ribs, flank, sirloin, and, yes, chicken thighs. The best meals don't require a second mortgage. They just require knowing what actually tastes good.